right, everybody, and welcome back to the Starving Artist Development Podcast, where we talk to Detroit's cultural artists about the highs and the lows and how they are using their creativity to move the city forward. I am your host, Gabrielle Carruthers. Today, I am joined by an artist herself. And when I say she is an artist, she is a multimedia artist, and she is also a art therapy practitioner and a lover of all things, especially when it comes to art. And let me tell you, she is amazing with the mixed media art. I have been following her series for a minute now, and I am just excited what she is bringing to the city with her mixed media. And not only is it entertaining, but it's also very educational. And I think you should all tune in. I want to welcome my beautiful guest. Hi, welcome. How are you?
Oh, nice to be here. I'm so glad that
Yeah.
when you reached out, I was like, oh, who me? Who? Okay. Okay. We can do
Yeah.
that.
Why not you? Why not you? You're a creative, you're a cultural artist, and you are putting Detroit on the map, and you're definitely preserving the arts here, period, in the
Yeah,
city. And the work
it's
that you
important.
are doing, yes, you are definitely doing the Lord's work. Let me just tell you that, because one thing I know for sure is when you don't know where you came from, you definitely don't know where you're going, right? And for
Exactly.
me, yep, I definitely feel like what you are doing, the series that you created, and just the amount of educational tools you are providing to not just your audience, but to an array of people. You are making art interesting, engaging, and
Mhm.
very eye-opening too, because it was some stuff that I didn't even know when I
I'm
started watching
learning
your
as I
series.
go.
So
Definitely.
hey, and listen, there's nothing wrong with that, because let me tell you
Yeah.
something. There are so many things about the art world, especially being a black artist, that you know black artists, they have come up against a lot of trials and tribulations, or just any black creative in general, right?
Yes.
So again, what you're doing, you're telling the story the way that it needs to be told. Especially now that we live in a digital world, and a lot of things, especially people that are a little bit younger than us, they don't understand why this history is so important to
Exactly.
our history in general, right?
Yep.
So let's dive into everything that you do. Please introduce yourself, tell everybody who you are, what you do, and what inspired you to dive into this kind of work.
Well, I am Kiana Davis, mixed media artist, like you said, art therapy practitioner in training. I'm also a writer and, of course, a lifestyle content creator. So I'm what you call the classic Detroit native resident D girl. You know, it's something about D girls. We just different. Detroit, anybody from Detroit, like Detroiters that like grew up here, were born here. There's nothing like us anywhere in the world. And then when you throw the creative into the mix with that, like we are unmatched. Like people aspire to
Yes,
be us, whether they believe it or not. So that's why they come in
that
here.
part.
That's why, you hear about Detroit this, Detroit that. And it's just a great place to be, especially in this present time. Being a Detroit creative, being a native Detroiter, being immersed in the world that we're immersed in. And honestly, I never saw myself here. So this is something that you're going along on a personal journey with me because this wasn't where I imagined myself when I was younger. I mean, I've always been a creative person, but I was studying fashion design at one point. So I
Mm,
never saw myself being a fine artist, mixed media artist, or what have you, on galleries and, doing the type of work I'm currently doing. But, you just get to a point where when God start presenting you stuff and, you start putting people in your path and it's like, do you go this way or do you actually listen and just follow suit? Because I feel
yeah.
like we sometimes make life harder when we don't see the signs and really read between the lines. Like, okay, maybe this is the direction I'm supposed to be traveling through. Now we got to bump our head until we get it right. But once you get it right and start listening, you just be amazed at how things align. Literally
Yes.
been my journey for the last almost 3 years. Hasn't even been a full 2 years professionally. So I literally just started this journey like the beginning of 2023.
Wow. Okay, so you're kind of doing a pivot as well.
Mhm.
What was your previous occupation? I know you said that you were studying fashion. What was your previous occupation before you decided to dive into mixed media?
Fashion was more so like when I first started school. Like I had to choose, decide, oh, which direction when I go to college, what I'm gonna be, what I'm gonna do. So I chose fashion design. I always minored in business, so I've always had a business mindset. That's part of my upbringing. My mother was in business for herself to a certain degree as well, even though she was in healthcare. So like the entrepreneurial mind has always been something that's been instilled in me, and it's something that comes natural. So like I more so have done like fashion or marketing related jobs, but in the mindset of working for myself. So I've had graphic design and web design companies over the years. But I was gonna say, but although I wasn't painting and designing for what I went to school with, I still have always been a creative to some degree. So like, sometimes you just create in other forms and then you get back to square one, your first love. So my first love for me has always been my art. So now that's where I'm back in that space, back to my first love and actually pursuing being a professional artist. So here I am.
It's a beautiful thing when you can go back to something that you truly love to do. If anybody knows about the pivot, it is me. I
Listen,
pivoted from being a dance educator, a choreographer, and a performer. I performed for
yeah,
over 30 years. I taught for 20.
mm,
And I always enjoy, broadcast journalism. My degree, essentially, I have a bachelor's of science in dance with a minor in communication studies. But I originally went to Wayne State for journalism because there was a situation with the dance department, but I ain't gonna get into that. But anyways, ended up graduating. Ended up graduating, working for Disney, and worked for Disney for a year doing a college internship. And then I went back and pretty much changed my major over. I was like, you know what, journalism is cool, but I'm not passionate about it, so I'm just going to re-audition for their dance department, and then decided, okay, I'll do that. Um, and then finish my minor out with communication studies because I still had those journalism credits. So during that time, even just attending Wayne State, I had an interest in dance and film.
yeah,
So that's what gravitated me like towards your series, was how you mixed your interest, and you made them visual, and then you took that visual storytelling approach, right, to talk about things
hmm,
that you loved and you were passionate about. So I thought that was really cool. And for me, that's kind of what the podcast was about. There were things that I love doing besides teaching dance. I love art. I love cultural arts. I love my city, and I love meeting and talking to different people here in the city and just finding out, their story and why their story is important to what helped shape our ecosystem essentially, right? And there are so
hmm,
many of us as cultural artists and as creatives that don't get a chance to tell our story for whatever reason. So it's definitely, for me, it's important to archive our stories, because when we don't archive our stories, we lose our history, right? So this
exactly.
podcast is kind of, it's in alignment with the work that you're doing, but just doing it from talking to people and just getting to know people and their stories and why their stories matter with moving the city forward, right? So, fashion. So, I know you've studied the fashion from Motown. Tell me you studied the fashion from Motown.
Listen, that's about to be the next exhibit. So I did an exhibit, my first exhibition curating this past fall, for Eastern Market After Dark. And that's where the whole swagger, I mean, swagger like us, for anybody that don't know, you should know because T.I. back popping on the radio. But that's what swagger like us was a song, with T.I. that was very popular, like several, it seemed like it's like yesterday, but that was like so many years ago now.
Yeah,
Isn't that
it was a
crazy?
while ago.
But that song is
Mm-hmm.
still iconic though. So like I can put that song on like right now and just we'd be like, but and then of course that's when like everybody on the track was at their prime too, like Wayne and everybody was on, it was so much synergy and like just popping your collar. this real like swag, like yeah, swag like ain't nobody got no swagger like us. So that's how I feel about Detroiters. Like nobody has swagger like us. So that's where like the concept came from for the show. But then I started to think about whether there have been any sort of like fashion related art exhibitions documenting different fashion trends. One thing about us that's only just now getting attention is we have our hands in everything. Like we're always known for automotive, of course, certain music sounds like Motown sound, techno, jazz, blues. I mean, we can go on and on and on about all the influences that Detroit has had on music as a pop, as far as culture and pop culture. And then of course with our culture specifically, but the fashion gets lost in the mix. Like there's nothing
Yeah.
like Detroit fashion. Like everybody is their own stylist. Everybody's their own like has their own sense of style, but it all seems to work. It's real
Yeah,
weird. No other city can say that though. Like, you
that's
got certain
true.
cities that set trends, but everybody's not a trendsetter within their own right. You know. So when I thought about it, I was like, well, dang, who's documenting like our influence on fashion? Because it gets downplayed a lot. They
Mm.
talk about Chicago as far as the Midwest. Of course, you got your New Yorks and your Milan, your LA, but who talks about Detroit? So that's where the Swagger Like Us History, Art, and Style art exhibition came from. And I focused on our influence on urban wear. Like, for instance, a lot of people
Mm.
don't know that Maurice Malone technically invented urban denim. He's a trendsetter. He's the pioneer that started denim and has as we know it. Before Sean John and Rockaware jean and all that, it was Maurice Malone, Mo jeans. So if you look up at history,
Yes.
like we are a pioneer. That's another example of something that was pioneered here in Detroit. And so the other part of that too was talked about Black dandyism because Black dandy and dandyism in general, as far as the Met Gala the year before, that was huge. That whole exhibit. But Detroit also had a hand in that. We got Hot Sam's, you got Burt's, you got all these iconic fashion clothiers right here in the city that some of them are still around to this day and our family run this legacy. So that was like where that started. And then I thought about it like, dang, because that was, look, listen, I'm going to tell you this. Curating an exhibit is a lot of work.
Yeah.
It
Oh,
did not
yeah.
go as you planned. I'm going to tell you that right now because none of that went as I planned. But I pulled it off anyway. So people were like, oh, you going to do another one? I was like, you know what? Now that I've had the chance to sit in it and think about it, like, okay, what have you learned? What went right? What was the feedback? People and the people that couldn't make it enjoyed. I mean, it was a lot going on that night, but people that did find it and came to support and just check it out, didn't even know what's going on. They kind of wandered in off at Orleans because I was in Detroit versus everybody's new retail activation space down in Orleans in Eastern Market. So we kind of teamed up for that. But I mean, people enjoyed it. So I actually want to focus on Motown Glamour as the next installation. Talk about the history of runway here in the city. Because another thing that we've are known for that's kind of sleeper are fashion shows. Our fashion
Yeah.
shows, like the white and black shows. I mean, the black parties and all that. Those are like like
Yeah.
low key. And then of course, shout out to Indie Fash. If anybody know Jelly, Deshawn, another originator of runway shows here in the city that don't quite get they play. Like people are starting to be up on them, but they don't quite get they play. So that's like where I want to
You
take it next. And I'm thinking
you
about
are
doing it
taking
around
me
the same time
back.
this year. Huh?
Wow. Yeah, you are really taking me back. I think I was in a show. I think I was like dancing or something in one of the shows.
I
I
definitely was
definitely
in one of the shows because Will Phelps asked me to be in one. I think I still had to post
yes.
it.
Yes.
I hate to
I'm
post
trying to
it,
remember
but
what group. I can't remember what group it was. And I definitely did a hair show too, with Little
yep.
Willie.
Yep.
Yep. And
Everybody
that
know
was my
Little
first
Willie.
time.
Yep.
First time ever exploring the hair world and not knowing how competitive the hair
Oh yeah.
world could be. But I mean, we're hair capital, right? So why wouldn't it be?
Yes.
But exploring fashion from that lens, I couldn't have even predict that Motown would be on your radar, but I had a feeling. I was like, is Motown has to be somewhere in her scope of study, especially just looking at all of the iconic costume and beading and jewelry and how a lot of that stuff was handmade and handcrafted And I mean, these ladies were tiny back then, right?
Yeah.
But the beading, the lines, the color, the symmetry, everything about it, is beautiful. And what a lot of people don't understand or realize is that like Detroit has pioneered so many different things, and we
Yeah.
don't get the credit we solely deserve. I did not know there was a young lady, the aunt, she's a famous artist. I think she goes by Domo Inc. And
Mm.
she designed Stevie Wonder's outfit for the Grammys, but she
Well,
never got the credit for it, right? So her niece decided to, pay homage to her work. And come to find out, the aunt actually did a lot of work here, working with Motown and designing a lot of the clothing and costumes for a lot of the musicians here in the city. And once I remember her
you
name, it's gonna come back to me.
you
But
need to
just
connect me to her.
yeah,
I need
right.
to
Like
talk to her.
she's on my hours. Absolutely. And yep, and she has a shop. She still has a shop. She's still alive. Once I remember the name, I'm definitely going to give it to you. But yes, she a pioneer of a lot of the designs here for Motown. And again, my hat off to her, because that it takes a lot of patience, to create a lot of those
That I do not
costumes.
have.
But just
Okay.
okay. And to see them up close, I mean, they are gorgeous.
Yes.
So, I know you
Craftsmanship.
just did an event. You just did an event. You were a guest speaker on a panel. I think it was
Mm-hmm.
at the Detroit Artist Market, and I am so sorry I could not make it to
It's
this
okay.
panel discussion. But can you enlighten us on how that event went and what the subject matter was about and just everything? Fill us in.
Yeah, that was amazing. Monique Riley, who was part of the executive team over at Detroit Artist Market, she reached out to me and just pitched it. She was telling me, "Hey, I have a slot open. I wanted to see if you were interested because she didn't say who I was going to be on the panel with, by the way. So I was on the panel with some amazing, esteemed women that's like killing it. So if you don't know some of these women's names, you need to look them up like ASAP as soon as I say them. But she hit me up to ask me, was I interested? Was I available? And of course, I'm gonna say yeah, because why not? Are you kidding? So that was my first panel as an artist. I've held my own panels around mental health and have done podcast interviews around grief and mental health because that's another scope that I focus on in my writing and content. But yeah, I was like, oh, of course. So when I found out who I was going to be on the panel with, I'm like, wow. So I was on the panel with Sabrina Nelson, Priscilla Pfeiffer, and then I wasn't really familiar with Lisa Anderson. Like I've seen her work, but I didn't know who she was off rip when I saw the name. But once I looked her up, I'm like, oh my god, these women are like crazy. Like they work, their scope of work is just like wow, like mind blowing. Like for instance, Sabrina just finished her tour with our James Baldwin exhibit that was at the Wright Museum
Mm,
and has
okay.
traveled all over the world. So, just being on that platform with women of that caliber, for one, is inspiring to me, being an emerging artist that's still so new in her practice, and knowing that the heights that I could reach and that my journey is obviously getting the attention of the right people and that people see value in what I'm doing, which of course is always encouraging. What no matter where you are in your career or where you are in in your journey, your testimony, because everybody's testimony has importance, has value because there's someone out there that needs to hear from you and what you're doing and what you've gone through. So we talked about a variety of things. We had so many gems drop, man. I can't even go through all the gems. We was just dropping, especially Sabrina, man. You listen to that woman talk, she be dropping gems like Salt Bay, like gem here, gem there. You gonna get some nuggets from Sabrina, okay? But
Okay.
everybody was dropping gems. So all the women were very knowledgeable. Just very of course intelligent, but the way they speak and the way they speak life and the advice that was given just from a place of love and care, but also wisdom and experience that's unmatched unless you've have experienced some things. But we were just talking about like the fierceness of women artists blazing their own paths, which I feel like that's part of the reason why Monique asked me. blazing your own path, regardless of the status quo or what everybody else is doing. You just put in the mud, like, okay, this is the way I'm going to go about what I'm doing. No matter what this
Yes.
person over here is doing or this person over here is doing, this is how I'm going about it and what I'm bringing to the table, in terms of, art, and then just how you move in general in the world. So we also talked
Yes.
about too, just practical things when it comes to the business of art, which me personally, that is something that I'm going to be connecting with several different people. One with City Walls and some other entities that are already doing this type of work. So we need
Yes.
to focus and get more engaged and have more panel talks and workshops and different things of that nature about as an artist, because like whether you like it or not, it's your business. Those of
Yeah.
us that have been in business for ourselves, we understand this. But your brand is your art is your practice, but you are your brand. So you have to move accordingly and educate yourself and be more knowledgeable about the basics, paperwork, the
Yes.
legalities, the marketing. I'm sorry to say, social media ain't going nowhere. So you're going to have to start learning how to market yourself on social media.
Yes.
um, don't be afraid of
Yes. Yes. Yes.
technology. Stop being scared of AI. Just learn how to use it, to your advantage. Learn what to
Yes.
do and what not to do. And if you don't know, ask questions. But YouTube University is free for starters. But those are
Okay.
some things that we touched upon. Like we really dive deep into those specific topics, and then there was a small Q&A at the end. So we did have some people that asked, for advice. Like one lady, she was talking about her daughter because her daughter is interested in the arts. She's very young, and so she was just asking us, like, from our standpoint, being artists, what advice could we share for her to pass on to her daughter in regards to, hey, what are some things that you would say that I should do to encourage her, or what should I get her into, and different things like that. So that was like very enlightening, and also it was a great way to give back. Sharing what you received as a child or what you received early on, that you can enlighten someone else and share with them to get another young creative off on the right foot.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, passing that knowledge down is so important, especially for our up and coming babies. Because now I can call them babies because I'm about to hit 40 soon, so I can call them babies now. It feels good.
Right, girl, because
But
trust, they calling
definitely,
us auntie, trust.
yes,
Auntie, I'm like,
auntie,
look,
mama, all that stuff. Yes, yes. I still
just don't
have
be don't be in
students.
your 30s call me no auntie though. We gonna fight.
Okay, because like I mean I'm there, but I almost okay. We got a couple more years till I get there. Yes, absolutely. I agree. I absolutely agree. Well, definitely. Uh, again, I miss. I wish I could have been at that panel discussion because I know there were gems being dropped left and right. But you brought up something that is very important, and it's about creative entrepreneurs and exploring the space of posting, on social media, strategizing their business and just making sure that their creative practice is where it needs to be in order for them to continue to push their art out. It is so funny that you mentioned that because I have been meeting with clients on getting their creative practice structured because I know what it's like being a creative and not having structure, right? Sometimes
Yep.
all you want to do is create. But I know one thing for me, something I've always emphasized to my students or anybody that I come across that's younger than me, whenever they talk about, oh, I want to become a dancer or I want to become a singer, da, 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 and I always tell them the same thing: learn the business of your art. If you don't do anything, always learn the business of your art because you never know when you may stop performing, right? So that's really important to understand the business, but also understanding the business so that way somebody doesn't try to get one over you,
Exactly.
because that, yes, that happened to me a lot growing up, because I was just young and naive and I wanted to, be on stage, but then there was a price I had to pay because I didn't understand, intellectual property or understand my contracts or understand, balancing a checkbook. And sometimes going to a different state and auditioning and not having any money, and then having to borrow money from a friend or from
Mm-hmm.
a friend of a family because I just, wanted to audition for Sierra. But now, you look back on that, and you're like, wow, Gabrielle, what were you thinking? But now that I am, yeah, I was hungry, young, naive, but knowing that
It was
now,
here. So you like, hey,
yeah,
look, once in a lifetime opportunity.
YOLO. I like YOLO. But sometimes even those opportunities, you want to have some type of preparation before you try to like move forward with that stuff because
Yeah.
yes, I been there, done that, wrote the book. So I am grateful that now that I am of age and I have experienced life, I can finally sit back and I can tell people that are, 20 years my senior, or 20 years younger than me, and just say, listen, don't do some of the stupid stuff I did, and just make sure
Right.
you have A, B, and C, lined up, so that way you don't have to experience certain things happening to you. I even had a conversation with a young lady I met with a prospect person for a contract, and I'm not opposed to like DM interviews or anything, but it was just the scope of how everything went. I really did not feel that it was professional. And for me, being in a creative space, but also knowing the business side of being a creative, I am also very adamant and firm and transparent on my boundaries as a creative and things that
Yeah.
I expect in return. And some people don't like that, right? But you
Of
have to
course not.
have those systems. Yeah, you have to have those systems in place. But knowing what I know now, versus what I didn't know then, I'm grateful that I can stand 10 toes down and say, no, this is my creative practice. This is how I move, how I groove. These are my operating agreements, my contracts, my voice
Mm-hmm.
notes, my resume, my referrals, my me protecting my intellectual property. Like that means something to me. I didn't spend all this money on this degree behind me for nothing. So
Right.
definitely. Um, Something I was going to ask you, I know you've collaborated with some other artists here in the city.
Yeah.
What was like your favorite collaboration as a multimedia artist?
Ooh. Some of my honestly, some of my favorite some of my favorite people, my people at Design Studio 6. That's my buddy. Miss April McGee Flurney. That's my homie. Yeah.
That
We
name
have some
sounds
future collaborations coming up too. We had talked about wanting to do some stuff at the studio and just really push it out there. And for those who don't know, so Mrs. April McGee Flurney, part of Legacy here in the city. So her father, Charles McGee, again, if you know who that is, look him up. But you've seen his work everywhere, okay? Every time you go to DIA, go outside the Wright Museum, different hospitals and different institutions around the city, you see his abstract work everywhere. Design
yes.
Studio 6, fun fact, it was actually one of his original studios before he passed. So
Wow.
she decided to keep the legacy going, and then turn that into a gallery, but also more so like a creative space because she April's an interior designer, so it's more so like an interior design slash creative studio that she just happens to have gallery exhibitions at. But
Okay.
she's definitely one of my favorite collaborations. She helped me keep my sanity during my show. I'm gonna shout her out every time. She's like, "What can I do to step in to help? It's okay."
Yeah. And then being in alignment and synergy, that is so important too, especially here in the city. I know something that a lot of people, a lot of millennials, we talk about on threads, because threads is where it's at right now. Let me just tell you, I'm having a ball
No,
on thread.
I'm struggling to grow mine on my page, but as far as my comments on other people's pages get a lot of views. I'm like, how direct some of that traffic back to me?
Okay. Yes. Threads. I'm having a ball because we're really over here building community, and we're actually putting our money where our mouth is. When we say we want to collaborate on something, we actually collaborate on something, right? Versus
Yeah,
just putting it out there and saying, oh, well, yeah, let's sit down and let's talk. And then, you don't hear from a person, for a whole year or
listen,
whatever.
I
But
said
I
that's
can
part of my
definitely, yeah,
intentional. We talked about that too
yeah.
on the panel. I said,
Yes.
we were asking about what is your mantra for the year, your goals for the year. I'm like, intentionality and the reciprocity. It's my two
Amen.
goals and the mantras this year and beyond. Let's be more
Yes.
intentional,
Yes.
please. And let's
Yes.
reciprocate. You don't have to
Yes.
give exactly the way I do, but just don't be out here taking from folks.
I agree. I agree. How can I be of service to you? How can I be a steward to what it is that you're doing? Because when you're a steward, like I said, you never know what doors you may open or avenues you may come across by just being a steward to somebody else. And one
Exactly.
thing I can definitely say, alignment is real. And from October till now, the pivot, the power in the pivot and
Hmm.
divine alignment is a real thing. And I did not realize how real it was until I decided I was going to start this podcast. So
Hmm.
that intentionality and reciprocity, it can go a long way. And people that are listening, if you are younger than 30, let me tell you something.
Yes.
Sometimes you have to
Especially
give.
younger
You
than
have to
30.
give. Yes, you
Right.
have to give.
Don't be like,
Don't be
oh, I ain't
selfish.
doing this. I ain't doing that. I ain't like, look now, nobody want to hear about what you ain't doing all the time. Okay.
Okay? Do not be selfish. Please start asking what do others need before you try to get what you need first, right? Because you never
Exactly.
know. You could be a vessel to somebody and then they will say your name in rooms that you haven't even stepped in.
Yep.
And I can say when divine timing is in alignment, it comes back full circle because I just secured a partnership with the Lion King. I didn't even reach out to these people. They reached out to me.
Yay.
And
Okay.
you want to talk about alignment? I worked for Disney. I worked
Right.
for the
Yeah.
theatrical group doing merchandising for 2 or 3 shows. I did dressing for Beauty and the Beast. And I just loved creating content about the culture here in the city, especially as a theater kid. And I don't know who put my name out there, but when they reached out to me and said, we love what you are doing and we want to collaborate with you while we are here in the city of Detroit.
That's amazing. I literally was thinking about going to see them. So I can't remember what year it was when I saw them. This is like not this most recent time they was in town, but like way before that. Of course, I've
Mhm.
always been obsessed with Lion King since I was a kid, but the the musical was just so freaking amazing. I'm like, you know what? I ain't seen it in a while. I might actually go to it while it's here in town, just for old time's sake, because it's an amazing production.
It
That was
is
great.
such a neat production.
Yeah,
And I am excited because I get to finally experience it as a theater goer versus somebody working at the theater. So this is like what 20
yeah,
plus years of me finally sitting down and enjoying the show because
good.
baby those tickets are always sold out. But if I can put a blurb out there, yes, if you plan on attending an amazing show because this is a partnership. It is
Right.
sponsored. Please go see The Lion King. I am so excited that they are back here in the city because I think they only come like every 3 to 5 years, honestly,
That's
whenever
what I'm
they
about to
go on
say. It's been
tour.
a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a
Because
while
they
since
have
they've
to
been here.
prepare for those tours. It takes a while. But yes, definitely check that out. So for sure. And you gotta go check it out too. So if I got a discount code, I'm gonna send it to you. So that way you can go ahead and get those tickets and you can check out
Appreciate
the
it.
Lion
Appreciate
King.
it. Appreciate it.
But yes, so back to some of the collaboration. So I know working in multimedia, sometimes it can be a challenge, right? Just putting your materials out there. What are some of the challenges you experienced working on your art as a multimedia expert?
More so like delegating your time, because when you're doing all of the things, it can get very overwhelming and daunting. Like you said, it goes back to the systems. So I'm first admit that I need to work on my systems. Okay. I mean, I know what I need to do, but taking the time to actually put it in place, that's literally extra time you have to take out But if you can chop it up into small blocks and do, okay, we're going to do this one little task. Unfortunately for me, when I do a video, like the videos I've been doing, because they're very intensive, I have to research. I gotta find all the images, any video clips if I can. And some of the periods that I'm talking about, like the 60s, 70s, they don't have video like we have now.
Yeah.
So finding things like video clips is like finding a needle haystack half the time. So even finding pictures and being mindful and cognizant of copyrights. So you got to give folks their credit. You can't just be snatching videos and pictures and not at least crediting the original creator, because you might get sued. Even though it's a free video, you're not selling nothing, but still, you have to think about stuff like that. So me personally working on my systems, but also really just being, again, I'm gonna say intentional till I'm blue in the face probably, but really thinking about, okay, what do I want to focus on? What's the goal? And putting this together and putting it out there. Like, what am I trying to get from this? Like right now, I've made a lot of traction in what I've done so far. So now I'm really locking in. Okay, what's working? What are some things I want to accomplish next to keep my momentum going and propelling me forward? What can I do less of? Because it's like we can't constantly do all the things all the time. Like you want to let something go. One or two things go, okay, well, maybe it's not the season for that anymore, or maybe that served its purpose already. So I can just drop that. For instance, I went hard last year with some shows. I didn't tend to do so many shows in a short period of time. However, I'm one of those people when I'm locked in, like, okay, this is what I want to do. This is the trajectory I'm supposed to be going. I can see everything, coming at me. Like, okay, this must be it right here, because things just lining up too crazy and too like specific for me to ignore.
Mm-hmm.
So I just locked in. But now it's like, okay, you did that. That was great. Not saying I'm not going to do as many exhibitions. It's just not going to be my main focus, like getting my visibility. Like I'm going to get my visibility, but just more strategically and be really honed in on specific things. Like, for instance, for me, I want to get in more collections, have more people collect my work. I want to definitely
Yeah.
do more curations, because I'm about curation, connection. I love to connect people. Like that's my thing. Like I do it with, like breathing. I don't even think about it. Like if I know, like, okay, it's this opportunity over here, and me and you cool, or I like what you doing. Oh, why don't you? What about so and so? I'll tag the person. Hey, guess what? I'm gonna send you this. Whoop, whoop. And that's the type of synergy and things that I appreciate. Like when people just, like you said, speak my name just because you just like me as a person, like what I'm doing. It's positive, it's progressive. Like I'm gonna always support anybody that's positive and progressive, unless somebody give me a reason not to. But that's off a
Yeah.
natural inclination. My natural inclination is I don't even have to know you that well. If you're doing something positive and progressive, especially from the D, and you black, of course, I'm about to be. Hey,
Okay.
what, how can I support that?
It's a
You know what I'm saying? If just
no-brainer.
sharing, just liking. I mean, sharing and liking is free. You don't have to, always put money down. We get in this mindset of everything has to be transactional for support. Like you don't have to be transactional with everything. Like liking, sharing, and just being encouraging. That's all free.
And a lot of people, they don't consider how, again, just uplifting somebody or just mentioning somebody's name, reposting their
Yeah.
content, sharing their information,
Yeah.
shouting them out, like that doesn't cost a thing to just
Nothing.
support somebody,
Right.
subscribing to their channel. And like I said, like the work that you are doing, the scope of work that you are doing, I know you consider it like multimedia arts, but like you're creating these miniature documentaries, and that takes a lot of time and editing and research.
Listen,
And I
I'm
mean,
behind
at
on
this
one today.
point,
I'm gonna tell you that now.
yes,
It was
yes, and
something
yes,
posted
let's
yesterday.
get into that. Yes, so let's talk about that. So, what are you currently working on right now?
Okay, so I want to, Black History Month technically about to be over by Saturday. We're gonna try to crank out at least four, four more by Saturday. Lord, pray for me, pray for me. But we gonna try. Okay. The goal was originally to do like one every day. See, I get a little too grandiose sometimes in my concepts and ideologies. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna take this idea. I'm gonna do this. And then you get to reality of you like, man, you ain't about to research, source, edit. add music, post, create the caption, and respond. You ain't doing all that every day unless you done had this a month in advance, ma'am. Come on, be realistic. That's the Pisces in me. Don't mind me. We see the vision. We see the vision, but then the action come in. You like, you know what? Come out the water, come back down to earth.
Realities.
It's okay. So as long as we finish out strong. So like to your point though, the reshares and different things. Like I didn't know how this was going to be received, and there are people out there, posting similar things as far as Black art history here in the city. But I feel like it's everyone's duty to some extent because we are all making history in our own way. We are all like historians in a sense. We're all culture keepers. So the way I do it is not necessarily going to be the way that you do it, but it's the fact that we all doing it is what's important. Like we all should be documenting and sharing because my audience is different than yours, and the next person's audience is different from yours. So you just never know who's going to see it. And like you said, you have people that you might not think is watching, or people could be older than you, they could be younger than you. Like I had a lady, she responded on the one that I did about artist protest. She's actually a historian here in the city. So she added some more tidbits about the contemporary studio. It was just talking about how Arts Extended, like the founders of that, they were all part of the DPS. And so she mentioned that point in the comments. And so again, you just never know who's watching and who your content would find. I'm like, well, I'm so grateful that you found me somehow. The algorithm aligned us. And you dropped some more history nuggets on the thread. Like, please, by all means, anytime I post something, you being an art historian, please do share more because somebody might be reading the comments. And then I could like tap you as a resource, like, hey, I'm thinking about, I'm putting together this next reel with this subject. Like, do you have anything to share that I might know of? Because sometimes when you're research, especially online, we got to fish through so many things that may not be factual. You don't know what's factual. You weren't there. But if you have somebody like that really lived the history, currently, documenting and studying the history, that human connection, that human touch is something that can't be replaced. Like that's something that AI would never be able to replace, for instance. Like I use it for my research. But again, having that human touch, that human element, that's what really sets this apart and what makes visual storytelling so important. Because sharing that, not only do we share facts, we're also sharing our emotion behind it. We're connecting on an emotional level as well as an educational level. So that's not something that just anybody can do. Some people have that gift a little more than others, but I feel like it's still important for us all to incorporate that to a certain extent.
Yeah, yeah. And I commend my mom for starting me off very
Oh
early.
my
Like I'm
God,
talking about
yes.
at the age
Listen,
of 6.
right. So honestly, like a little joke. So my mother used to I kind of when I started when the idea popped in my head, like I thought of her immediately because one thing she used to do, I don't know if my else's mama did this. My mama definitely was, of course we're college educated, but she was definitely into the pro black and we did Kwanzaa and she made us write history reports. So she had a whole book series of famous African Americans, some little well known, no, some well known and some not well known. So I actually learned some stuff. Did I like doing it at the time? Hell no, because I'm out of school. I don't want to do nothing else in school. I don't. I mean, it's interesting, but I don't want to write a book report. But it's funny when I got the idea, I was like, "Mama, did you put this in my head?"
This is
I
essentially a
said,
book report, the book report that you had me writing.
"Exactly."
Yes.
I said, "The Black History
That
facts
is
came in important." Now here I am
you
documenting.
here you are now. Look at
Yeah, I'm
God. See, you didn't think that
pulling
you were
a
going to use this
Miranda.
knowledge. Right.
Yes.
Listen, I was just telling my husband about that too. I was like, who would have thought that the knowledge that my mother instilled in me when I was like 6 or 7, I didn't understand it, but now I
Mm-hmm.
get it. I get it now, So, and if you could see my bookshelf of just African American literature and how I was obsessed with African American lit, especially in college. And
Mm-hmm.
then Toni Morrison's collection. Oh my God, Song of Solomon.
Yes. I
I
haven't read that. I want to read
highlighted,
it.
highlighted
See?
and took notes in that book. And one of my old friends, she took my book without asking me. And I had to light her behind up because I said, "You don't understand how these things are important to me. What you may see as a casual borrowing of a book, this is a collection of notes that I plan on looking back at some years from now when Tony is no longer here, right?" And sure
Yeah.
enough, when I wanted that book and I ended up purchasing her last book, um, 2 weeks before she passed away, right? And I was in Lorain, Ohio, because I had an old Starbucks account in Lorain, Ohio, and I was trying to find her house in Lorain, Ohio. Um, but just having that, right? Having that piece of literature, something that was so important to me, Song of Solomon, and not knowing the true meaning behind Song of Solomon and how it related to the Bible scripture of Song of Solomon and just the
Hmm.
character breakdown. But see, again, my notes were my notes for a reason. Now, did I go back and buy the book? I did. I didn't reread it because I was mad how the book ended. I was very upset with Toni Morrison, and I actually cried, which was like the first time I ever cried over a book. I was boo-hooing at work. but but yes, but just the power of literature, the power of art, and the places that it can take you, especially with our people, because we hold so many treasures and we've also pioneered so many things. And there are some things that we still don't receive credit for or recognition for, right? So the work that you are doing, absolutely. I feel like if anything, we should be donating to what you're doing because you're doing a production and it takes a lot of work to put those things together, to research, to edit, to come across, copy written materials to make sure that you're sourcing the correct source, to then cross check your facts. That takes a lot of work. And it takes a lot of dedication. And I definitely want to
Yeah.
give my flowers to you for doing that. So thank you. Thank you for moving the culture forward with that. So the last question, if you can impart any wisdom on any aspiring multimedia artist, what would you tell them?
First off, and I had to say this to a photographer I know because she kept calling herself a wannabe. I'm like, ma'am, you are not a wannabe photographer, and she listens to this. She know I'm talking about her. So see
You better listen up,
yourself
girl.
doing. See yourself
Mhm.
doing. Because I remember when I used to call myself an aspiring model at the time when I was modeling and acting. I was told by a professional, stop calling yourself aspiring. Like you are doing. It's something that you already are. Like we are as artists, as creatives, is part of who we are as a person. It's part of our essence. Our purpose, what we were meant to do, what we were put here for. So that's first and foremost. Whether you decide to sell work or not, it doesn't matter. You're still an artist. So call yourself accordingly, what you are. The other thing is, I would say one last parting thing is comparison. Stop that. Don't be so hung up on the what shoulda, coulda, woulda. Because I used to be hung up on that. Like I didn't see myself doing this at this stage of my life, and other people got the leg up on me. They started sooner than I did. Like whatever it is that you're doing right now at this given point in time is what you were meant to do at this given point in time. And some people, like some of the most well-known, most successful visionaries, multimillionaires, billionaires, inventors, historians, creatives, what you name it, have all started later in life. I mean, we can
Mhm.
talk about so many people that we could throw names out there, started in 40s, 50s, 60s, hell, even the 80s, Grandma Moses. I mean, these people started at the point in time when they were supposed to start. And so that's how you have to look at your craft and look at your practice and what you're doing is that you are doing whatever it is you're supposed to be doing at the right time. You're supposed to be doing it.
Wow, thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for sitting down with us
Yes,
here
thanks for
on the
having me.
Starving Artist Development Podcast. Where can we find you on social media?
Okay, well, since we already know this going to appear on the gram, let's talk about the gram first. So I'm one of the people that keep it simple. You know, it ain't gonna be Shaquanda is the greatest GWAT. Shout out to GWAT though for her match. She just smashed it and people talking ill about her, but that's a whole nother topic, a whole nother podcast. Mine is just Kiana M. First name is spelled Qiana, the letter M as in Mary. And then on Facebook, it's my whole name. So that would be Kiana M. Davis, Davis on Facebook. I mean, you can follow me on little TikToks too. I might get it back around to doing the TikToks. Like old people say, they be adding S's on stuff. Like it's just TikTok.
No,
My
I
TikTok.
understand. TikTok is
That's
sending me
also
too.
Kiana.
I'm like, all right, all right. And of course, your series Swagger Like Us. I know we're wrapping up Black History, but I know you said you're going to continue your
Yes.
series, so I am excited.
So
I'm very excited
it's
about
going
that.
to be on Swagger like Detroit. Um, Black Art in America is the name of the series. The handle is Swagger Like Detroit. So just look up that handle. Please follow because I'm building it up over there. And I think I just decided to do a Substack. So I'm going to do a Substack
Oh, good. Okay.
because you can't post all the things on the socials in terms of like people's attention span. They barely watching the 40 seconds. I'm surprised I get
Okay.
as many views as I'm getting
Mhm.
and shares. So to really like do it a little more justice with some more of the research that I've been coming across, I decided to do a Substack to really dive deep. And I might not just talk about art, I might talk about the music too. So just Detroit, period. Anything interesting about Detroit.
All right. Well, listen, I'm here for it. And I would definitely be following you on Substack. I'm on Substack already. That is my quiet place. I love being on Substack because I can say whatever I want to say. Ain't nobody got to worry about it. So I would definitely be checking you out. Yes, Swagger Like Detroit is the name of the series, y'all. So make sure you all go follow that. And please, 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 whatever you do, make sure that you are continuing to uplift the culture here in the city. And again, thank you so much for all of the work that you are doing to preserve our history, making art look beautiful and engaging and something to look forward to. And thank you for just paving the way, one innovator and curator at a time. So
Yes,
thank you
ma'am.
everybody for joining us. Thank you,
Thank
thank you.
you.
And we will see you all on the next episode. Talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.